Live from VentureX Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
All right, good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to JP, Kathy, and the crew. So excited that you all could join us today. Lots of questions about vaccines. Johnson & Johnson was safe, then Johnson & Johnson wasn't safe, and now it's going to be safe again. So we've got Dr. Norm Clothier. I believe he's already on the line. And then we'll be discussing, oh my goodness, there's a plethora of things we could talk about after Dr. Clothier. The Oscars, which I did not watch, I've just read about and seen a couple of clips, and OMG anyways. Oh my goodness. And then Kamala Harris, or the lack thereof, with her job as czar, quote unquote, of the border, and what's her delay in getting help to these people. So anyways, just tons to talk about today. But right now we have got the one and only Dr. Norm Clothier. Good morning, Dr. Clothier.
Good morning. As far as I know, I am the only one, so I appreciate that.
There you
That's
go.
good observation.
That's
yeah.
your new title.
So.
There you go. Well, so talk to us. It's ever changing. At this time last week, there was still a pause on Johnson & Johnson, and we didn't know what the case was going to be there. Now, supposedly, there's a lift on that. So help us out.
Yeah,
what's the scoop?
That's actually more than supposedly. The group that administers or that oversees vaccine administration and recommendations recommended lifting the pause Friday, and so the FDA agreed. And so it is lifted. And what's up with it really is the nature of a new product. And this is a difficult topic because it does involve some obvious difficult outcomes for people that have those. The bulk of people have not, and that's what I think we have to come to peace with somehow, which is very challenging. But what happened if you, obviously have been following the news, the Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine, which is a combined company. Janssen is the immunization arm of Johnson & Johnson. And so the Janssen vaccine is the single dose that many people have been waiting on. I'm not clear on why, but some people are really irritated by the idea of getting two shots.
And that's another thing. And Dr. Clothier, that's another thing I'd like you to discuss during this show if you can, and that is a huge number. I don't know if I sent you this article, and I know you're like, okay, Kathy, I'm a doctor. I don't get any of these articles. Thanks, kid. But I came across something. There's a huge number of people who are getting the first vaccine and never going back for their second appointment. So if you can discuss that as well today, and just, is that dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just briefly mention, go get it. It's good to have immunity, and there's nothing odd about two vaccines for something. You get boosters for tetanus and pertussis. You get two pneumonia shots over time, two hepatitis A. There are three hepatitis B. There are two varicella, chickenpox, two zoster, shingles protection shots. On and on. I could go down the list. There's an annual flu shot, and nobody until this year with COVID has thought that that's weird or implausible that they could go get a second shot.
Yeah.
And I would say just go get it. It's not that hard, and the flexibility is there. The first month they wanted with Pfizer for there to be a 21-day window or shot interval, and with Moderna, a 28-day, and now it's very flexible. It needs to be around 3 or 4 weeks, but it can be up to 6 or 8 weeks. And don't let that stop you from preventing a deadly disease. You don't want to be laying in the ICU on a ventilator thinking, boy, I wish I'd gone for that second shot. That would have been super handy right now. So
right.
I would say, go get it. But I think talking about Johnson & Johnson, as I was mentioning earlier, there was a pause placed because there had at that time been 6 blood clots identified in recipients of the vaccine at about somewhere around 7 to 14 days after the shot. I would tell you that we have observed with COVID, the infection, that there are a lot of people that develop blood clots 7 to 14 days later. So remember that the Pfizer and Moderna shots are messenger RNA blockers, so they keep the virus from getting in the cell, whereas Johnson & Johnson is more a particle of the virus, that helps the body identify and formulate an immune response to the virus if you have the shot, so that you're ready to attack the virus if you get the virus. It is unclear so far why these people had clots 7 to 14 days out, but that also happens with the infection. So there may be a little crossover, or because it's about 85% involved immune producing, perhaps it's that they are getting, a mild case of COVID itself and getting clots. So there's still a lot of research to be done. But at the time the pause was put in effect, it was 6 cases of blood clots. There now are 15 total, and there have been 8 million administrations of the virus.
Okay.
So if you're ready to count zeros with me, that is 0.0000018%.
Right.
So that is 2/10,000 of 1%.
I think you're just nervous. You don't want to be the person that gets the blood clot, and I get that. That makes me nervous. I thought, a shot, one and done, and you're good. But now that would make me extremely nervous with the blood clot situation. And it's interesting, Dr. Clothier. There had been an uptick in people going into the hospitals, into emergency rooms. And it was considered a COVID visit, and they had no signs, no sneezing, no loss of sense of smell, taste, no fever, nothing. But they were worried, and they wanted to be checked out and scanned for blood clot. Okay, say that. I need drink more coffee for blood clots, because they were nervous when all the news hit the media.
Absolutely. So, that's part of the understandable panic response, because this whole thing is set up as a panic in so many ways, and it should be, frankly, because it's a new virus that has killed, 560,000 Americans. And I understand people wanting to see if they have any problem. I think the challenge always is, overutilization of medical issues for fear concerns. But we are in a society where we have access to get that testing and to assess what's going on. So I understand the numbers are still incredibly low, and that's what makes it very hard. You're right that if you are the one with it, your rate of a blood clot is 100%. But when we look at the big picture view, and I want to point out there are 2 other vaccines on the market, Pfizer and Moderna, both have vaccines which have not been associated with blood clots. And then let's think about the numbers too, just for at least an understanding of why it is that it has been allowed to come out of the pause. Okay, first, the reason there was a pause on the vaccine was because it is still an experimental approval, because of the nature of the virus that has been infecting and killing so many people. It was an emergency approval. So when there is any concern, they tend to put in some degree of new restrictions or new precautions.
Okay.
So that's a very common step. And then after the 11 days, they decide to go ahead with the vaccine. And that's because the numbers of infection, disability, death, etc., are remarkably higher than the complication rate on the vaccine. And again, I know that's hard for people to come to peace with, but let's look at a couple of different issues in a reasonable way, I think, to just understand what we're talking about in terms of the idea of, say, potentially withdrawing this vaccine from the market or not administering for, let's say, a year. And let's think about this. In America each year, so there have been 15 cases of blood clots, 3 of which were fatal. In America each year, there are 900,000 blood clots diagnosed. That's, a large number, far above the 15 out of 8 million, of those who received the vaccine, that rate. And there are 150,000 to 300,000 deaths from blood clots, not counting anybody with a COVID vaccine. The most recent numbers are through 2019. So this is before we even heard of COVID, the virus. And I can tell you the numbers will be higher in 2020 because COVID, the virus, causes a lot of blood clotting, a lot of readmissions to the hospital. A lot of the people who have died from COVID have died from blood clots.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one number.
That's something that you haven't heard about in the news. You hear about the complications, obviously breathing and people on the ventilator and going into ICU, and then that's all she wrote kind of a thing, or really having to fight if they are able to get out of ICU when they've been on the ventilator. So you're saying blood clots were a problem if you get COVID.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There's a really high rate of people who have had COVID that have had the blood clot. It's much more than 0.00018%.
Okay.
And so, that's been a markedly higher risk and concern. And there's even been talk like maybe a standard treatment should be blood thinners if somebody's on COVID. That hasn't passed any muster because there's not really proof that prevents the blood clots. So that's maybe why you haven't heard about that. But that's a common cause of complications of COVID, is to get a blood clot. So the second figure I just want us to think about, and this, again, it may not change your worry pattern for the J&J vaccine, but there are two other vaccines out there, Pfizer and Moderna, and the numbers of availability are high enough now that you can get one of the others, by the way, if you're just not comfortable. Okay, a couple of things, though. All the clots have been in women between 20 and 50. And we don't understand that at all yet. I think that it appears men are not getting any. There haven't been case reports, at least as of this morning, that I could find in the medical literature. And there have been 0 above age 65, and it's believed there have been 0 over 50. There's one case report that shows one of the women of the 15 was 54, but another case report shows she was 44. So that, if you're over 65 or male, I think it's not even a debatable issue that you could get the vaccine at this point in time. Then another couple of numbers every year in America. So there were 3 deaths, by the way, of these 15 clots, which again, I find to be very sad and very difficult to talk about, keep the vaccine available with 3 deaths. But every year in America, there are 142,000 deaths from lung cancer, almost all of which are associated with tobacco, cigarette smoke. And there are 140,000 deaths from COPD or emphysema. So that's 280,000 deaths a year from cigarettes that are on the market and available. So, when we start thinking about, should we withdraw something for 15 cases and 3 deaths, I think we also need to really have an honest approach to, should we withdraw cigarettes from the market?
Yes. No, I know. There's a bunch of people going, Kathy, whatever. No, and that's the thing. We've dealt with, cigarettes, alcohol. My goodness. I was just at the birthday party of a family member who turned 99 yesterday, which is just amazing. Still lives alone, cooking 3 meals a day. Happy birthday and birthday blessings to you, Margaret. Love you. Mwah. But, I look at somebody who's got longevity like that, who's taking care of their health their whole entire life, and then you turn around, you look at vaping. Look at how many unknowns we have with vaping. Look at the knowns that we have that are bad. But what about the unknowns? What are we looking at with vaping for this generation that started it in their teenage years in 10, 20, 30 years?
I don't think I would expect the numbers to be fantastic. I don't think we're going to see health benefits, brain benefits, lung benefits. I think it's going to be very negative. Yep. So you're right. So here's what I think we have to come to peace with. And again, it's not comfortable at all. And that is, we have a very deadly, very debilitating virus as a world issue. And again, let me point out, this is not U.S. politics. This is a world issue of infection. Look at India right now, absolutely being decimated by the virus.
Right.
Okay, so then if we have the chance, and nobody wants to be in this spot to try to pick and choose this, but if you can prevent 85 to 95% of infections that are worldwide causing high rates of fatalities and disability, and there are 15 cases of clots and 3 deaths, we have to, at some point, try to come to peace with which is better. Would it be withholding a vaccine from millions of people and expecting somewhere around, per million people, 10,000 deaths. And there have been 8 million administration. So you could say we've prevented 80,000 deaths, but we've had 3. And that's one of those very difficult, again, I'm glad I don't have to pick and choose those things, but I think we have to weigh it in balance. Now, here's what I would suggest until we have more information on this. One is, if you're a female between 20 and 50, get a Moderna or Pfizer vaccine and just don't worry yourself with getting the J&J vaccine. Now, if you already got it, we are out of the window of time where clots have been seen with it.
Okay, so if you received it right before the shutdown or the pause, then you're out of the clear. You don't need to go to your doctor to talk about blood clots if you have not had those signs by now.
A blood clot, if
you would know.
You're one of the 900,000 people who gets a blood clot anyway, you need to pay attention to that.
What are the signs?
14 days out from a vaccine.
Okay, and you're safe. Real quick, then, what are signs of a blood clot? And this is a PSA announcement for outside of COVID. This could save your life. What are signs of a blood clot?
Well, the so-called deep venous thrombosis, which is most common, is usually in the leg, very rarely in the arm, but it's one leg, maybe one arm because it's so rare at the arm, with swelling, pain, redness, usually at the calf. So if you have both legs swelling and you always swell, that's probably not a new blood clot. It's one of those things you have to kind of weigh with judgment.
Okay.
And then the ultimate is when it becomes a risk to you is if it breaks loose and goes to the lung, what we call pulmonary embolism or a PE.
Right.
And that can be fatal. And that would be a sharp, sudden stabbing chest pain. Usually, most people describe it as being up between the shoulder blades, kind of an upper chest pain. Keeping in mind the lungs are actually pretty high in the chest compared to what many people kind of think they are.
Right.
But if you had a sudden chest pain and you've had, either a family history of blood clots, a recent surgical procedure, been sitting a lot, like riding a long car trip, sitting at your desk for hours at a time without ever getting up, hardly at all those things are risk factors for blood clots. If you smoke, that's a risk factor.
Okay.
If you're on hormones, that's a risk factor.
Oh.
And then in this case, if you had the J&J vaccine within the 14 days, then, I think you have to pay attention to sharp, sudden chest pain and shortness of breath. And I believe you would. What I found is in the practice of medicine for many years now is that people have an instinctive feeling when something is really wrong. If I see somebody come in that's had 6 months of off and on chest pain and shortness of breath when they're climbing up a flight of stairs, I think of many different things than a blood clot. And the blood clot tends to be very sudden, sharp, very, very obvious, honestly.
Right.
And I think those are the people that end up in the ER. If somebody's sitting around thinking, I think I've had some symptoms that could fit with that of a blood clot. And that's where I find, Google and such, all the search engines to not be that helpful, is that they don't understand that there are individuals. And so they'll say, if you have chest pain, you could have a blood clot. Well, if you've had chest pain for months and, or have other causes, it's not likely an acute pulmonary embolism. If you're walking around doing fine and suddenly you have sharp chest pain, can't breathe, you go to the ER.
Get into the ER, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's
so,
good stuff.
I think it's just, we have to have a fair perspective. There also, there's a possibility because there are 100 deaths a day in motor vehicle accidents in the United States alone. There's a possibility you could be driving away from getting a COVID vaccine and be hit, T-boned and killed. That is, I think that's also a sad situation. I wouldn't let it stop me from going and doing my usual things. I think you've got to, be seat belted, look both ways, follow the rules of the road that have been put in place. And most of the time you get places fine. And that's kind of how it is with vaccines and medicines and surgeries. There are a high rate. There is a high rate of blood clot formation with people on certain chemotherapies. But I don't think we should pull that from the market and say we can't treat your cancer because there has been some percentage of blood clots.
Right.
You have to weigh that in the balance of was the risk of the actual disease. And that's, again, that's a hard one. It's a new one for a lot of Americans to ponder, because we generally, why almost everybody I see now, when I prescribe a medicine, they ask, oh, what are the side effects? And, there's a litany of side effects because of the nature of life.
Right.
And a lot of things happen during life that may or may not be, 1-to-1 ratio with the medicine. So I feel like we also need to talk about what is the effect, not just the side effect, but what is the effect?
Right.
And when the effect is overwhelmingly a positive, it's something you have to weigh and balance. And again, I'm not in any way saying I don't have concern about what we've seen with blood clots, because I do think it's weird. I think it's weird there are 15 people that all happen to be women in that age group. There seems to be a factor there we need to identify for sure. There's no doubt about that. But I also think about the other 80,000 who probably aren't going to die of COVID because they got that vaccine.
Right.
And, I think all those people are going to be really glad that they aren't going to be dead from COVID. I think it's, it's one of those deals where if you don't die of COVID, you don't know that you would have without the vaccine. That's a really hard study to do, to see who would have had a severely complicating case. But we know by percentages that a lot more than the 2/10,000ths of 1% have had complicating issues from COVID.
Well, great info as always, and we really appreciate you, Dr. Clothier. Thank you so much for answering questions, and especially about the blood clot issue. And again, we hear something, we read something. It's human nature to get nervous and be concerned.
Oh, of course.
So we appreciate you coming in and being a voice of reason, and we hope you have a blessed week and stay healthy.
Well, thank you. That's my plan. I appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Clothier.
Take care.
All right, Dr. Norm Clothier, good information. And as always, if, we've got people who watch the show and who are part of the crew who have received the vaccine. You, JP, yourself and your dad, y'all have received the vaccine. And then we've got people who haven't and won't. And you know what? The great thing is we live in America, and that's your choice. At least today, that's your choice.
Well, and I guess I'm just kind of curious as why a person's individual choice has become such a public display.
To where you can get shamed?
Right. I mean,
one way or the other.
Well, I've almost gotten to the point where I'm ready to shut down my entire Facebook page.
Woo!
That's where I'm almost
You're
there.
almost there.
Yeah, I really am. I'm tired.
Was talking with a friend yesterday who said, "Hey, how else can I see y'all's show? I miss all the shows on the network, but I can't do Facebook."
Yeah. Well, you go to our website.
Yeah, and I said website, YouTube. I said we've got tons of other vehicles for you to watch it that are either on that I don't know about or that are coming on. So
yeah, I just I can't. I'm almost to the point. I'm getting ready to shut down my Facebook page. Open up a family only of about 50 or 60 people.
You tried doing that a while back, and then that
I
page
didn't
grew.
do it. Well, I ended up not doing it, right?
Well, no, but you did. I remember getting a second request from you years ago.
Oh yeah, that was years ago. Yes.
And then that started getting so big, and I was like, so you got two of them?
Yeah, I ended up fizzling
pages?
it out and shutting it down. But again, the bottom line is that how did something that's so individually private become such a public, scrutinized thing?
Well,
it's like
health.
if you choose to get the vaccine, great for you. If you choose not to, great for you. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want you to tell me how proud you are that you're not vaccinated or how proud you are vaccinated. And I guess the only way to do that is to make my personal choice, which would be to shut it all down.
Shut it down so you don't see it.
Yeah,
well,
I don't want to deal with it.
And it's interesting because now I'm okay if somebody wants to. Now I think it's funny because then there's the memes out there and the Facebook profile frames that I got my second vaccine today. I'm so excited. Okay, good for you. But then there's the people who are like, I don't care if you got a vaccine. And I guess
Right.
I look at it, okay, the flu, which is something that we literally deal with every year, and we have dealt with this every year. And and it's interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody on the crew. There's Gail, and she said she's taken a huge amount of zinc this year. She wonders if that's why she hasn't really gotten sick this year. And I'm thinking, I must be doing something different during COVID to where I didn't get the flu this year. And you know me, I'm luck of the
Right.
draw. I get strain A and strain B, even when I've been vaccinated.
Right.
So interestingly enough, I wasn't vaccinated this year because I was like, I don't know if I want to go into the pharmacy or into the doctor's office just to get a flu shot. And I'm always real big on that for me and my kids at the beginning of flu season. But I don't understand the shaming. If you don't want the vaccine, don't get it.
Yeah.
If you want it, get it. That's great. Rock and roll. But don't shame other people because we never did this for the flu shot. We went
Right.
decades and decades, JP. I mean, how long has a flu shot been around? Forever and a day?
I got one for you. Why aren't we just shaming everybody for taking that darn polio shot?
Yeah, how dare you
How
back
dare
in the
you
day?
take a polio
Mumps,
vaccine?
measles, and rubella. What are you
Yeah.
doing as a baby? Tell
Well,
your parents no.
I guess what my biggest issue is, and this is what I don't like.
and I'm not making fun of anti-vaxxers. No.
It's the division. There seems to be this competitive division that is starting
Very
to
competitive. That's a good
starting
word
to
for it.
develop, and it's kind of scary. And it's like this is exactly where the government wants you to be. It wants
Amen.
to divide the people. If it can divide the people, then it can take down our republic because you got to have a divided people.
And guess what? They've done a real good job on that, not just on the vaccine stuff, on law and order, on our first responders, on police, on
The border.
teachers in the classroom, teachers not in the classroom, the border, all, masks, no mask. It's like they've planted so many things
Well,
for us
you
to be
look at-
upset about.
In an example, right?
You
So we
know?
take it deeper, right? Maxine Waters.
Oh, we were
coming
having
out-
such a good discussion,
Well,
JP.
coming out and screaming and yelling about you need to be more confrontational. If they come back with a
with the
a
wrong,
not guilt, right?
with
Yeah,
the
wrong
conviction,
conviction, yeah,
wrong conviction,
wrong
yeah,
judgment.
wrong judgment.
Then we need to
Yeah.
escalate. Okay, so why? Why are you a part of that? And again, you're creating this competitive division amongst Americans. And so I've got a real issue with that. And I'm going to continue to use that term, competitive division.
And that's a great term. It does and usually you and I grew up thinking competition was healthy. We were both in all kinds of different competitions growing up. Very healthy, helped us be the people we are today, helped us be motivated, had a great time doing it. And competition was a fun thing. It's like it's a negative, it's like a 4-letter word right now.
Right. And it is.
That's
Well,
kind of sad.
And not to shift,
That
but
was
I'm
real
going to shift
sad.
us over to the Oscars, right?
Oh.
So, well, and again,
which
though-
neither one of us watched last night. by
No,
the way.
I was going to watch that hee-haw, bunch of garbage. So, but here's my thing, though, right? So it's interesting. Chloe Zhao, if I said that right, I apologize if I did. Zhao, I'm sorry. Chloe Zhao or Zoe. They say that she's become the first woman of color to win Best Director.
Okay. Well,
She's Asian.
okay.
When did Asian people become people of color?
Because they've now been lumped into, and unfortunately, there is prejudice towards Asians still with some people. Like there's a prejudice towards all races and male and female
There's
with
a
all people.
prejudice towards fat people.
Yeah, there's a
Make
prejudice.
the booths
yeah.
bigger. Jesus, give me a break. Create 4 roller coaster carts for fat people so I can go ride a roller. Give me a break. There's more prejudice against fat people than anything else.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's a little tongue in cheek, but I do think that it's interesting that we're saying that Chloe Zhao or Zoe has become the first woman of color to win Best Director.
see, and it's interesting because it's been years since and I think there's only been one female that has won Best Director in the history of the Oscars, if I'm correct.
Right.
And so I thought they would just be celebrating the fact that, hey, you know what? Because that's one of the things, and it's interesting, the Oscars, it's almost like their pool of people pick according to the political wave that's out there nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought they would. I was not surprised when a female had won. Now I've not seen the movie. I think it was for Nomadland.
Correct.
Was that what? Okay,
That's correct.
Which actually, that's something that Michael and I have on our watch list that we definitely want to watch. We're fans of the lady who won Best Actress in that. She was originally in Fargo, but anyways, I thought I was not surprised that a female won, and then I thought they would celebrate, that it was a female. But it's like you can't even be like, okay, yay, Oh, the female. Okay, a woman won on that. That's awesome. Or yeah, this guy won, and that's awesome. Okay, you have to be. It's like if you don't have another descriptor besides you're something male or something female or something transgender or something binary. When did it come like? Oh yeah, I was talking about my friend the other day. JP, he's this guy. Why do I have to say? Oh, wait a second. He's a guy who, well, okay, and let me give 5 descriptors with him.
Right. Well, he's a white, fat guy who has a problem with booths sometimes.
He'll rant about
He'll rant about it. The truth of it is that, again, this competitive division we can see throughout everything we're doing now.
It's by design.
Well, and what it makes me feel like we've gone back to the late 40s, early 50s. Right now we're seeing a lot in the news about police shootings, deputy sheriff shootings. We've got a Virginia situation. You've got the Carolina situation. You've got all these things that are popping up, and it's starting to boggle the mind only from the standpoint that I believe what's created this is this nervousness now, that there's this backlash that for some reason these groups have created opportunities for individual citizens to be able to say, for example, if I get pulled over, I'm not getting out of my car and running towards a police car, right? I'm going to stay in my car.
Well, that's what you're taught to do.
Right. But see, there are other individuals who are getting out of their cars and they're running or taking off when they've done nothing. All they're getting pulled over for is a traffic ticket.
And that's what's gonna cause a problem. If you do something out of the norm, and you're taught this in, driver's ed. My son just got his driver's license not too long ago. It hasn't been all that long since Emily was studying for hers and got her driver's license. And that's one of the things that we discussed. That was something that they had to learn about. What's the appropriate protocol? First of all, when an ambulance has its siren, and this makes me crazy.
Right.
Siren on, lights on. Obviously, they're either headed to pick up somebody who's in an emergency health situation, or they've got somebody in there and they're heading to a hospital. And people just keep driving and they're having to honk. What are you supposed to do when an emergency vehicle?
Get over to the right.
Pull and stop. Get over to the right and stop. For an emergency vehicle, it is what it is. That's something that you're taught. People just kind of go, I need to get to where I need to get to 7-Eleven or Starbucks, whatever. But then another thing you're taught is the appropriate protocol if you are pulled over by a police officer, because it might be, a tail lights out. Maybe you were speeding. Maybe you took a right turn on red when it was no right on red. And you sit and you wait and, now you get your driver's license out, you get your insurance out because they're going to ask for that, have those out and ready, and then the officer's going to tell you why they pulled you over.
Well, and again, though, when an officer tells you to stop,
you stop.
Why wouldn't you stop? My question is, why wouldn't you rather go ahead and have him come over, arrest you, take you to jail, hire yourself a lawyer or get a court appointed,
get a big old lawsuit,
and go through the process,
Yep.
right? And I get it that right now there's this fear. I've talked with a lot of leaders in the black community.
Yes.
And there's this fear that there's going to be, no matter what it's for,
that there's going to be a shooting.
There's going to be a shooting or violence or something's going to happen where you end up bruised up, bleeding, and in jail, right? But again, I believe that that's been created by this competitive division that I'm using from both sides. You've got this huge pushback from Black Lives Matter, which, by the way, side note, other black activists are finally figuring out that Black Lives Matter has been taking advantage of all of their support, their financial supporters living in huge $1 million mansions, while everybody else.
What the heck?
Well, and again, but they're leading the diatribe with these folks. And these folks are going out and putting themselves on the streets, sending money in, thinking that this organization is going to support them and provide other centers when there's been nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely nothing.
Well, you've got neighborhoods that are still destroyed. You've got, still ridiculously high level of black on black crime in these neighborhoods.
Chicago being one.
So if I'm somebody who is donated to that cause, I'm real mad because I'm not seeing any improvement. And that's where,
Right.
and then there's a lot of black leaders. Well, for example, I cannot remember her last name, gorgeous girl, a black lady out of in her early 30s, I believe, Kim, and I can't remember her last name, who ran for Congress. Remember her out of the projects of Chicago? Oh, we played her video. It went viral.
I'm sure we did. I don't.
Anyways, I'm trying to remember
I'm
her last
old.
name. Somebody help me with that.
I've got baby brain.
But she got mad. She got mad because she was fronted out for calling out the fact that, hey, what has our congressman done for us? What has our United States senator? What has our state rep? What has our state senator done? What has our city council done? This neighborhood has stayed the same since I was a kid. There's no improvement. If anything, there's more graffiti, there's more destruction, there's more crime, there's more killing. And she got slammed because she was a black woman speaking about what's happening in her own backyard. Well, she has every right to speak out and be upset about that. That's her home.
Well, and this is where I'm going with part of this, right? A big part of this is that you take all of this animosity, all this competitive division, as I'm calling it, and it's all being spurred by the outside to get the inside all in arms. And when in reality, we're not all in arms against ourselves. And if we would
the majority of people aren't.
Right. And if we would just allow ourselves to slow down and slow our roll and actually just talk to each other, then we could get ourselves out of a lot of the mess that we're getting ourselves into. But it's starting to feel like a very 40s, 50s type atmosphere.
See, and the sad thing is, like, I think I know where you're going with the 40s, 50s, and, you know, there was these people against those people and
lack
all
of
this.
trust,
You know,
on both sides.
no, but I'm saying I don't think you can even. You can start the comparison there. The reason it's such a problem is because we have 24/7 constant contact in our hands that everybody walks around with. I'm telling you, social media, the fact that literally there is 24/7 news, and you know what, the majority of it they put out there is bad news. You don't see many puppy adoptions on TV, on the news. You know, you don't see many, young people who are going out and on a weekly basis singing old songs, old timey songs at a nursing home. You don't see the happy stories like you do. You see the tragedy because that's what sells ad space, and that's what gets more views. Unfortunately, it's like we have to choose. I started looking, and you know, we've got local elections going on, so if early voting, I need to look up stops in a couple of days, but election day is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday in your city council, school board, ISD, and in Collin County's case, the board of trustees. And there are many bonds that are on around various cities in the state and counties. So look for those. There are tons to vote for. So get out and vote in those. But like, I was on some feeds yesterday where I started reading some comments, and everything was so negative, and everybody was arguing with everybody. And I thought, you know what? I had just come, and like I mentioned earlier, from Margaret's 99th birthday party, where it was delightful, it was lovely, it was uplifting, it was wonderful, it was a celebration. And then I thought, you know what? I can come home tonight and I can get right in the fray of this, or I can sit there and read, or I can call some of my friends who have called with some concerns, or I can turn on the Oscars and watch, anything patriotism be slammed, whatever they're going to slam this year,
Right.
Which was the police that they slammed this year. I thought, or I can sit down get my puppy a puppuccino and sit down with my husband and binge watch a fun show that somebody just told me about. So that's what I did.
Well,
and it's just you've got to take a break and shut the rest of that out.
Well, and I agree wholeheartedly.
You know?
What we need to almost create almost like a league of let's just talk and be friends. And I'm going to love this. I'm going to be told that I just marginalized the plight of the African American / Black American, because how dare me just say we should all sit down and talk and be friends, because we've got things that we need reparations for. We have been wronged. And I'm thinking at some point, all of us have been wronged. And what you've got to figure out is that what this really comes down to, in my opinion, what this really comes down to is power and money. That's what it comes down to.
And it's from the top of the food chain.
That's
and
right.
They're taking advantage of those of us who are we the people.
And it doesn't matter if you're of color, not of color. It doesn't matter any of that. It is who gets to keep the power and who has all the money. And it goes back to the Rawlsian theory. 10% of the people have 90% of the resources. 90% of the people
and
have 10% of the resources.
And with that comes the power.
Well,
so why are we asking questions about that? Then why did this country, JP, why did they put a person in the office, the presidency, who has been part of the problem for almost 60 years? And I want to ask you, I want to take your point further, because this is a really good point you're making. Okay, you know what? You look back and everybody, now some of us have had, better childhoods than other. Let me ask you about you. Okay, you're a white man.
Yeah.
Did you not have some hell that you and your mom and your sister lived through as a child? I mean, like, literally, we could fill up like
3 shows.
Life-threatening. We could fill up a whole entire week just on the hell you and your sister and your mom went through, and how y'all overcame. And again, yours ends up being a triumphant story at the end. But I guarantee you, if we could ask your mom right now, there were probably times she cried herself to bed thinking, I don't know if I can get my kids safely through the night.
Yeah, she did.
I don't know if I can feed my kids
and
tomorrow.
Ding, 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 right? There you go. There's the bingo.
Okay, so why do you walk around an optimistic man?
Right. Well, and again,
you should be mad.
Well, and again,
you should still be mad.
Right, and there should be anger. I agree. Well, and see, but
at some point, don't you have to let it go?
Well,
it'll kill you.
But
sorry,
no, no, yeah, anger. Come on. It's your cell phone connection, people. Fix your cell phone connection. We're talking just fine. We don't know what you're talking about. Well, to answer what you're saying, though, is that I had a mother who wouldn't allow anything else but optimism. Yep. It wasn't acceptable to blame anybody else for your plight. It wasn't acceptable for you to take any of your defeats or your not getting something accomplished and blaming it on your plight. It was you take responsibility and ownership, right?
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, we always were loved. Even how crazy things were, we knew that our mother loved us, right? Which created trust. And I think a lot of these people, their mommies didn't love them very much, and they lost trust. Joe Biden and Jumpin' Joe Eddie Obobo, Biden. And
so I wonder, is this the breakdown of the family, which we've talked about, because you and I were raised in such a different time. I mean, my kids, there were, especially when they went from private school, a private Christian school, to public school, they would tell me horror stories, and they're like, well, so-and-so hasn't even seen their mom in 10 years, or so-and-so, their mom, doesn't care if they pass or fail or if they even go to high school, kind of a thing. And they were it was kind of jarring to them. And I said, so, having a helicopter mom who volunteers at your school and is all over every success or all over every failure, both ways, not so bad, right?
Right.
But I think it's gotten to the point where we've got such a breakdown of family and faith. I'm going to say it. It's a huge breakdown of faith. We started taking Jesus out of everything. We took God out of everything. So what did we expect?
Well, and I do see people coming back to the church. I do see
and
that.
I think that's a COVID thing. I think that might be one of what Dr. Good says.
Oh,
Dr. Good says that it's a COVID blessing, because a lot of people started doing online church, because especially at first, think of how fearful we all were. We're like, is this it? Are we going to make it to 2021? Am I literally going to look around and, JP's going to have lost 10 people? Maybe I'm gone. I don't know.
Right.
And so at those times, those of us who rely on faith, or maybe people who had kind of gotten away from their faith, I think came back to it. I don't know.
Well, to me, it seems like there's an upturn, and I'm hoping that a common sense approach to life is finally coming upon people to stay in line with this competitive division. And we're going to continue to dive into the Georgia election law, but let's talk competitive division for a moment.
Oh, we're not going to talk about Czar Harris and the fact that
we'll get there. It's only 8/19.
Okay, that there's a crisis, and guess what? She doesn't have time until May 7th to talk to the Mexican president. Oh, give me a break.
No, it's really, what everybody's missing on that.
Give me a break.
Here's what everybody's missing on that. It's Guatemala is the key. So remind me of that after I get done with this, because you're going to make me forget. Because I got baby brain.
For it.
I didn't get much sleep last night, so I got baby brain.
He's been up every hour on the hour.
Yeah, pretty much.
After bragging about 6 hours of sleep the night before.
Oh, my gosh, yes. He slept till 6. Yeah. So, but when we're talking about competitive division, again, tell me how it's racist to shorten early voting for everybody, or to shorten when you can request your mail-in ballot for everybody. Why is it that whites have more access to mail-in ballots than blacks in a shorter period of time? I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense. And I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, it's not racist. Well, but they're saying it is racist. And that's what I'm getting at here. We are going to have to use our common sense to not allow the far-leaning left to accomplish their goal. And I'm telling you, folks, we're losing the battle because the minority voice, and I'm not talking about color or race, I'm talking about the few that want to control the many are controlling the voice that's being heard. And what do I mean by that?
You're so right.
I'm talking about the people that want this country to no longer be a republic. They want it to be a socialist government, which we know doesn't work. Again, shifting power to the fewer and giving more of the money to the fewer so that they can control. Because what threatens socialism? Middle class. Middle class threatens socialism. What's expanded?
Joe Public.
Well,
The normal guy.
What expanded in the last 4 years? What expanded?
Oh, the middle class.
The
Yeah,
middle class
absolutely.
under President Trump,
Yes.
like him or not, and again,
in all arenas. Let me tell you, the
Right.
Black and the Hispanic society and women, and I don't have the statistics at my fingertips, but you can go and look at what President Trump did for those groups, and he did more than any other president in history has done for those communities, for Hispanic, for the Black community, and for females. And so, why are we griping?
But again, I go back to that's one of our biggest expansions in the middle class is what we're going to find out. And what can't socialism control? They can't control the middle class.
Right.
They can control the impoverished. Why? Because they don't have. So the government's going to come in. For example, they're talking about, let's dive deeper. They're talking about giving permanent unemployment benefits to people.
Yeah.
What? What does that even mean?
So
how
then
do you
you've got
create
people-
a permanent unemployment benefit? So does that mean that
That's
with
so
my
scary.
retirement, and I'm going to go ahead and belly up my company on purpose, and I'm going to claim retirement benefits, that I can now receive my retirement from TCDRS and receive unemployment benefits permanently for the rest of my life? I mean, think about this for a moment. If I were to
is that
really
not
take
double
this
dipping?
seriously, well, think about this. I could bring in probably close to $2,000 to $2,200 a month in unemployment benefits, if not more. Maybe even $2,400, right? Because that's what's the going rate. It's about $600 a week right now. All right.
Right.
Food stamps. I could probably get $400 or $500 a month in food stamps. Then, if I'm really clever, I'm going to go out and apply for TANF.
For what?
TANF.
Okay, what's that?
That's where they send you out some cash, and you get money from the government. That's where the true welfare is.
I went to sign up for that. I
Welfare
went
is
to go to there.
TANF, and it'll pay you utilities. It's money to pay. It's not a lot, but when you add it all up, I could be walking out from the government with $3,300, $3,400 a month.
Then why have a job?
And that's what's going on.
I can kick back and drink six-pack every day.
Again, competitive division, right? We've got a workforce that's wanting people to come to work. Have you not been driving around and seeing where everybody in the service industry has a sign up that says hiring now immediately?
Oh, there's
everywhere.
jobs all over the place. Especially the service industry. You're seeing that left and right on shopping centers. I'm seeing it. I've noticed it. You're right. It's very out there.
People
and
are
obvious.
staying home and not going to work,
and especially
Socialism.
our younger generation. This is
Right.
what's really tough. So those who were just coming into adulthood in this time period, especially if they haven't been able to stay in school or they've had to come back from college or stop their trade school or stop whatever their plans were because of COVID. You know, to them, I mean, that's nice. $2,400. I'm trying to think. When I was a beginning teacher, I think maybe that's what I was making a year, if that. I don't even. I'm trying to. It was teacher salaries back in the '90s weren't so great.
Right.
Not that they're what they should be now, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But so when you're in your young 20s, and all of a sudden you're making at least enough money to pay your bills for the first time. Where's your motivation?
Well, and that's the thing, right? And again, how does socialism...
So what are we doing to that generation?
Well, creating socialists.
Yeah, exactly. Because then
You're
most of
creating
them
socialists.
aren't on insurance. I just had this conversation with my son the other day. You know, he's like, well, yeah, if you lived in a foreign country, he said, if you lived in another country, then, because I was talking about how I want to get started on allergy shots. And I said, now that even with insurance and with good insurance was still a couple of $1,000s out of pocket by the time we did his testing and got his first rounds of shots. And we did 2 a week for a while because we really wanted to get this infused into his system and get these allergies and these allergic symptoms out of control. I said, right off the bat, it was about, in the first few months, it was about $2,000 out of pocket, well worth it. And I said, and he said, well, because he asked me, well, Mom, he said, you keep talking about your allergies. When are you going to go get shots? And I said, at some point, I said, where I'm willing to just spend $2,000 out of pocket for you. I said, for me, I think twice about it, because then that means, oh, well, I can't save for your car. I can't do this or I can't do that. I said, so that becomes a mom and a parent thing. And he said, well, in another country, you could walk right in. I said, actually, no. I said, no. I said, that's socialized medicine. And I know he could tell, he's like, oh, why did I say this? But I said, you know what? You may not have access. I said, you probably would not have been allowed to have gone to the allergist for 2 shots a week or for even a shot a week. I said, I'm over 50. They might look at me and be like, just get some more Kleenex.
Well, and again, they do. Socialized medicine does that.
But they're teaching the younger generation, infiltrating them and teaching them that this is all great.
Yeah, but the problem is that they don't live in socialized medicine. Whole other topic, whole nother day.
Yeah.
Before we have to hear the music in the ears, I do want to talk about Kamala Harris and her run to the border. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, she's not going.
Lack thereof.
Yeah, my bad.
It's a Zoom meeting on May 7th. What's the date today?
April 25th or 6th.
Okay, April 26th. Yeah, you do have baby brain.
Yeah.
April 26th. So, and she's been in this position of, first of all, she's been vice president since January. She's been in this position since of czar for over a month. If there were a hurricane, would you not expect a president or a vice president, especially if they're in charge of it and they're a czar of it, not to be boots on the ground immediately?
Not this group of idiots. These, in the world of life is good, that we have a band of brothers, right, that stick together and we fight the good fight. This is a band of idiots. And so with the band of idiots...
Another JPism.
Yes. With the band of idiots, the problem with that is that means they've got to pay attention to the actual problem and try to find a solution to spending $3.1 billion per year on just immigrant children coming to this country that, by the way, are spending 122 hours in custody. Now, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with 122 hours in custody? Well, the law says that they're supposed to be released and distributed within 72 hours.
Yeah.
Not 122 hours. So not only are we footing the bill right now just for immigrant children of $3.1 billion per year.
Good night.
How did that become my tax burden? And then they're being held past 72 hours. And so we're not following the law. If President Trump was doing this, AOC would be on the border with her cameras, screaming and yelling.
There's not enough room for these poor children. Literally, these immigration centers are busting at the seams. This is not just a border crisis. This is a humanitarian crisis that has been created by President Joe Biden. He created this. This issue was not there to this magnitude while President Trump was in office. And so I don't understand why are people not outraged?
Because
these kids, they don't have enough, there's not a bathroom space.
This is small, by the way. The small group is controlling the conversation. And so when President Trump was dealing with the border, it was how dare he, that white misogynist human being. Now you've got the white misogynist Joe Biden, who's running the show. Jumpin' Joe Eddie can't get his act together Biden. So
we're adding to his nickname.
Yeah, we are. And so the bottom line is that the border crisis, the humanitarian crisis, is tenfold of what Donald Trump had to deal with because of the way they've handled this. What I think is funny is I'm going to meet with the Guatemalan president first and then the Mexican president to see how we can slow everything down. Well, wait a minute. You and Jumpin' Joe wanted everybody to come on in.
Yeah.
But yet you weren't prepared to handle it. And instead,
Yeah.
we've got, I'm going to call them way stations that are being overrun.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, can you imagine where the human waste, where it's going and how it's being handled?
I don't know.
How do you
there are
feed
people
these
who are
people?
sick. There are people who are coming over with COVID.
Yeah.
So that's spreading. They're coming over with other diseases that we may not have had to have dealt with for a long time here in this country. And again, then, okay, you've got all these people over here, but if you don't have the space for them, I would love to be able to have a party with 200 people at my house. Guess what? I don't have the space. So therefore, I'm not going to try to cram 200 people into my house and say, let's all have a good time. Somebody's going to have to eat in the bathroom if that's
You would
the
need
case.
a czar.
Well, yeah, there you go.
You need a party czar.
And do a Zoom on May 7th. And I'm sorry, this is a crisis. You've got children who are sleeping on a floor with basically a foil blanket wrapped around them.
Yeah.
Who knows when they get to shower.
122 hours.
So,
Locked up. 122
yeah.
hours.
So
Yeah.
why is Harris, why is she not literally boots on the ground here with her photo opportunity with these children?
She's busy redoing the
busy
vice
can you
president's
be?
house.
Is that what she's doing?
Yeah.
What is she doing,
Yeah.
JP?
Redoing the vice president's house. I knew that would get to you. Well, I know the music is playing and it's getting louder, and so it's time for us to say adieu. With that, we want to see what Grogu thought of the show today. What did Grogu think? Let's see what he thought. Oh,
Giggle.
he liked
Good
that.
times.
Tune in on Wednesday. We are always packed on Wednesday.
Yes,
Great
yes, yes,
information.
yes.
All kinds of cool stuff coming your way. So tune in on Wednesday to JP, Kathy, and the crew.
And it is Buc-ee's.
And it
Somebody
is
was
Buc-ee's.
asking, is this Buc-ee's? And what fun drink? It's one of just those fizzy waters that has like lime flavor. Yeah, because I'm really not
It
drinking
might give me the
coffee
burpee.
anymore.
It might give me the burpees.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah,
You have
'cause you
to
have the
watch
little
out
bubbles.
for that. You have to watch. It's good, though.
It
It's
is.
fun.
Well, I'm going to burp my way
Good
out of here.
times.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, and stay tuned.
I burped Carter.
Yeah, there you go.
I burped Carter.
10:30, we've got Heart and Soul of Texas Women. We've got Becky Leach on our show today. Super excited about that. And fun times, JP. We always get riled up. I know. Bless your heart. You got to get the baby back to sleeping at night.
He did so good until last night.
And you bragged one night too soon.
I bragged one night too many. One night too many. All right, everybody. Have a blessed week. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.